Well, you can probably see here that my Scrambles Cub replica has a new look about it. I had to change the fuel tank because the red one down there, I'm quite disappointed actually, because it was a good sort of replica of the shape that the original Trials and some sports Cubs had. Nice and narrow sort of pear drop shaped tank, but it's got a leak from underneath on one of the welded seams. I might be able to do something about it, but for the time being I decided that I'd go and have a rummage through my spares, and I found this tank that's fitted now, and I've had quite an entertaining and interesting few hours with it. Notice it's the sort of wide shape, it's the sort of shape they used up until 1957 when they changed over to the same shape and size tank as I've got on my 58 Tiger Cub, but that's got mouth organ badges, and this one would take the earlier badges, a bit like that, with the there's some there with the chrome styling strips behind them. So we've got all that in hand. What I might do with this one actually is just put the badges on without the styling strips, I don't know. And also I had a look for knee rubbers, and although I've got some, they're not very good, they're quite hard and split and cracked, but I noticed, I had a look on the internet and you can actually buy them new, so I'll probably buy some new knee rubbers for it and probably pencil this tank in for being painted at some stage, because there's no dents in it, although there was a hell of a lot of filth in the bottom of it, real black gooey evil stuff that I had to get out, but I've dealt with that. Fitted a tank which doesn't leak. I thought that would be it, that would be great. But what I found out was I was going to use the fuel tap from this tank, but there's a couple of sizes of fuel tap where they thread into the tank. I don't know the numbers. I know there's one of them at least is a gas thread, but anyway, this has got the smaller size, and the ordinary Tiger Cub tanks use the larger size. There's the small there. That tap would screw into this tank. This tap, as you can see, the threaded portion that screws into the tank is far bigger. So I've got a fully functioning tap on this one, but I couldn't use it because it's too small, so I thought I'll go and get a nice new old stock tap that I had upstairs in the loft. There it is, it's on there actually, and fit that, and that'll work fine. So I put that on, put some fuel in, and fuel just poured everywhere out of it. So I thought, right, I'll get that out then, shoddy foreign stuff maybe, I don't know, and I picked this one out. This one screwed in nicely and didn't actually leak when I opened it and ran the engine, but when I switched it off, turned it off, that's when it started dribbling and oozing. So you can't really do anything much with those, unfortunately. This is the same type of tap as I've got fitted, and I reverted back to that one because I was able to take the corks out of it. Because the nice thing about these sort of hexagon taps, hexagon because when you push the hexagon into the body, it's on, so hexagon. You can dismantle them completely and renew or refresh the corks, which is what I did. I just got the corks out the tap that's fitted to the tank and boiled them, put them in a soup tin, poured some boiling water in there and a little bit of washing up liquid, and 15 minutes later they'd almost doubled in thickness, and I put them back in the tap, rebuilt the tap, reassembled everything, and I'm pleased to say, whether the petrol is switched on or off, we now have no leaks from the fuel tap or the fuel tank. And another thing I noticed with this one, obviously it had been leaking before I became aware of it, because I was having so much fun riding the thing, I suppose, is that the petrol that was coming out of this, both by sort of what was sloshing out the filler cap seal that hadn't been great, and obviously the split underneath, was the fuel was dissolving this lovely red paint and spattering it all over my lovely repainted oil tank, subframe, rear shock, exhaust pipe. Everything had streaks and dots of this reddish pink looking substance that had washed off this tank. So I had a little bit of a polishing session using some metal polish and a cotton cloth, and I've got everything off that I could see. So at the moment we've got a runner that doesn't leak oil, doesn't leak petrol, and seems to start fairly easily as well. But oh, and I fixed the speedometer. That had all come loose and rotated around in there, and that was just a couple of screws. I've only got one actually in there at the moment, but I noticed there was some empty threaded holes there, so there must have been some screws in there that fell out. Like I say, it's wobbling around a bit because I've only got one screw so far, so I've got to look for another one. So we're back in business with the speedometer clock, although it had carried on working, to be fair to it. It's just the face had slewed around inside the casing. So I've got one screw for that to try and sort out some badges and some knee pads. And I think, actually, I quite like the look of this tank on it anyway. Side on, it looks just like the Trials and the Sports Cub replica tank in profile, but it is wider. But not too bad at all. So I might even consider getting this one painted at some time. But first of all, I just want to make sure that we are actually good to go, and I'll ride it and make sure it comes back with no petrol leaks or whatever. But I think we're out the woods. I can see a bit more pinkness on that top fin there and on the inlet manifold actually, so I'll have to clean them off as well. But that's what I've been up against, washing off the fuel tank and generally applying itself to wherever it feels like on the bike. So but luckily, hopefully that should be an end of that lot now, and I think we've still got a rather purposeful looking bike, even though it's now got a fatter and silver fuel tank on it. I think it still doesn't look too bad, so I'm not unhappy with that.